Well, good evening from New York City, home of the King's College, and the polar vortex winter storm that swept the East Coast. We got about a foot of snow here in New York City, and so those of you that are logging in from around the country, some of you will be from the West Coast, some of you will be in the South and in the Midwest. New York City is currently a winter wonderland, and although you're here with us tonight via the wonders of technology, we'd love for you to come and see what New York is like in all of its different seasons, whether it be winter, summer, and especially fall is nice in New York City. This is an opportunity for me as the president of the King's College to interact with you online and to give you a little bit of a background on the King's College, who we are, what our mission is, and then for me to respond to whatever questions that you have. This provides a forum for us to connect, even if you haven't been able to travel in person to New York City yet, which we would invite you all to do. We have wonderful weekend excursions called Inviso, in which you get to actually come to campus, interact with our students and our faculty, and get to enjoy New York City while you're at it. So it's a nice getaway, but this is kind of a teaser, a conversation starter, and we're so glad that you have joined us here this evening. The King's College has a very unique role that it plays in the world of higher education across this country. If you think about it this way, there are roughly 4,000 institutions of higher education in this country, whether they be colleges or universities, community colleges, all the way up to major and long-standing institutions like Harvard University. Of those 4,000 institutions, there's about 2,000 that are public and 2,000 that are private. Of those private institutions, there are about 600 plus that historically have had some connection to a religious denomination or faith-based organization. Most of those have put that in their past, and so in the United States, there's about 100 colleges that still have an explicitly Christian orientation, a Christ-centered faith statement that out of which they operate in terms of their mission. Of those 100, there's really only one situated in a major urban center, and that's the King's College. And we just happen to be in New York City, which is the greatest city on planet Earth. It's where the world is shaped, right outside of these windows. The college is situated right here on Broadway and Exchange, and I'll say a little bit more about our location here in the financial district in just a moment. When we think about higher education and the conversation that's been happening nationally about the role that colleges and universities play in our culture, there's always some kind of controversy related to what's happening at universities or not happening at universities across this country. It's always in the news. And there's a widespread perception, it's been on the cover of major news magazines and periodicals for years now. There's the perception out there that somehow higher education is the problem, not the answer to the great things that our culture faces. But the reality is, the leaders who shape culture always come through great institutions that give significant training for strategic institutions. And that's why the King's College is in New York City. David Gellertner, who is a well-known, celebrated expert in computer science at Yale University, wrote an article last fall in the Weekly Standard in which he talked about the fact that the people that are in charge of the great institutions in higher education across this country, many times their values do not fit with the values of a great number of people, maybe even a majority of people in the country. And yet they're the people that supply folks that go into publishing, the media outlets, the networks, the newspapers, the legal field, and finance and business. And Hollywood. You think about the institutions that shape culture. And there's two reactions that you can have to that. Either you can sort of be like Chicken Little and say that the sky is falling, and say that the culture's on the decline and we need to run for the hills. You can either have that kind of mentality, or you could say it's time for super bright and intelligent Christian young people and scholars to engage on the field of debate with the great issues of our time. And that is precisely what we are trying to do here at the King's College in New York City. So if people regard colleges and universities somehow as being part of the problem, we here at the King's College want to be the solution. Now, we have a very focused mission statement, and that will get to maybe some of your questions about whether or not the King's College would be the right fit for you. The King's College mission is this: that through the truths of Christianity and a biblical worldview, the King's College seeks to transform society by preparing students for careers in which they will begin by shaping and hopefully eventually begin leading strategic public and private institutions in our culture. And we do that with a faculty who are on the major media outlets, on Fox News, on CNBC, on the Blaze TV, or wherever, talking about the great public square issues of our time, the issues that grip the minds and hearts of the Republic right now, whether that be in politics or economics or business or the arts. Now, I've already alluded to this earlier, but we have a unique competitive advantage being here in New York City, because this is the center of culture. Pope John Paul II, who by shorthand I call J2P2, once referred to New York City as the capital of the world. It was when Pope John Paul II was still the Pope, and it's still true today. The temperature in New York City, what happens here, shapes not only the country, but it shapes planet Earth. There's a reason for that. There's a historical reason. It's because, to a large extent, what happened in New York City back in the 17th century when the Dutch settlers first came here, literally steps from our front door at the King's College, they brought an enthusiasm about godly ambition and commerce to this country that set the tone for everything that has happened since. And when you walk out of the front door of the King's College here on Broadway, here in Lower Manhattan, you're within steps of some of the most inspirational sites in the history of the founding of the American Republic. So right cat-a-cornered across the street, if I could pan the camera over, we would see Trinity Church, where Alexander Hamilton is buried. One of our founding fathers, a founding secretary of the Treasury, who was the genius behind the American banking system that became the global standard around the world. You also, if you walk around the corner just down from Trinity Church, you find yourself at Federal Hall, where George Washington was inaugurated as the first president of the United States, and where the Bill of Rights was passed. So the King's College physical location is a testament and a memory to the authors of the Federalist Papers, those brave men that passed the Bill of Rights during the American Revolution. And so we still stand for those principles today. But we do so in a unique way because we are not just an institution that believes in American principles and ideals. We're an institution that's rooted in the great Christian intellectual tradition. We believe that the reason why Western civilization in general and America has flourished in particular is because godly Christian people have been placed in strategic centers of influence over a long course of time in history, and they really have been salt and light in the culture. Unfortunately, what's happening to many Christians in our society is that they're being marginalized. They're being pushed out of the centers of influence and power. And what we're able to do here at the King's College, because of where we're located, is we have unique access to those institutions that help to shape culture. Now, as we look around, it's not just historical landmarks such as Federal Hall and Trinity Church that remind us of that. Within steps of our front door, we have the New York Stock Exchange, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, the financial institutions. So when Wall Street sneezes, the entire globe catches a cold, right? Well, what we want to do is we want to have Christians who have the highest level of preparation, who are studying with people who have had amazing careers on Wall Street, with professors that have studied at Ivy League institutions, feeding into the life of students that will then go into those strategic institutions and make a change for the common good, and can restore our society to a new period of human flourishing. We have those kinds of godly ambitions here at the King's College. Now, some of you that are watching this are prospective students. So I want to address who is the kind of student that comes to the King's College. Well, because we are in New York City, and because New York City is our campus, so when you think about what does their library look like? Well, we definitely have a library on campus, but the New York Public Library is a pretty good library to have as part of your campus. So we have all of the things that New York City has to offer to our students as part of the campus. But more than that, what makes the King's College special are the type of students that come here. We have the best and brightest and most entrepreneurial and ambitious students that the country has to offer. And they come from all over the country. They come from California. They come from Arizona. They come from Michigan, Texas, Colorado, all points in between, from north and south, from the Mid-Atlantic region, and from right here in New York City. But they're coming to this unique access point, and the students that come here are students who want to compete in the global marketplace and to bring faith back into the marketplace. So when you look at Acts chapter 17, the Apostle Paul goes to Athens, which was then the capital of the world. What does he do? Well, the first thing that he does is he goes down into the agora. He goes into the business marketplace, and he talks to business leaders and finance leaders, and he reasons with them about how Christianity can shape their lives and thought. Then he climbs up the Acropolis, and he goes to the great Temple Mount, and he sees all the pagan gods. And then he comes down and debates with the philosophers about the ideas that shaped the world, the ancient world at that time. And he looked for points of commonality and points of challenge with them as well. That's exactly what we're doing. We're situated right here in the marketplace, reasoning from an informed philosophical perspective that's rooted in biblical truth, and that's who we are. So the students that we bring to the King's College are here because they want to compete. They're tough. New York City is bustling. It is challenging, and the students that will come here will get the life skills that it will take to be leaders in their field. So no shrinking violets need apply to the King's College. We take competitors here. I was talking to one of our recent graduates who has done an entrepreneurial business startup in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And he was talking about how his King's education influenced him. And he said, you will not really understand the value of a King's College education until you're in a room with other very bright people and you are the only one who can see around the problem that everybody else can't get past. It's a curriculum that we have here at the King's College that helps you truly to think outside the box, to engage at the highest level of critical thinking. Now, how do we do that? There are models that produce the kinds of leaders that shape culture. And curriculum-wise, Our core curriculum is based in the classical Western tradition. So if you like classical education, this is the place for you. We're reading Plato and we're reading Aristotle and we're reading the great works that have animated the ideals of Western civilization. But our core curriculum is based off of the Oxford University program model of PP&E, philosophy, politics, and economics. Now, what does that mean? The PP&E program is designed for people who see all of the problems in society, but are in a position to think critically about them so that government and so business can move forward. Rather than leading from behind, you want to lead from the front. So at Oxford University, if you look at David Cameron's cabinet, the current Prime Minister of Great Britain, every couple of months you'll see an article in the BBC or in the Guardian newspaper about why is it that PP&E graduates from Oxford are the people in strategic centers of influence and are populating the Prime Minister's cabinet. It's because that program uniquely trains people to lead institutions. And that is exactly what is happening with our alumni. Since the King's College moved to New York City in 1999, over 600 of our graduates have stayed here in the New York City metro area and are now in publishing, in advertising, in leading financial institutions, in media, in the arts, in museum life, in the fashion industry. And so our core curriculum sets the tone for that. And then we have three big divisions that inform the majors that you can take. And I want to talk about that a little bit to maybe clear up some misperceptions about that. We have three anchor divisions at the King's College. We have PP&E, politics, philosophy, and economics. That's one division. We have business and finance, which is the second one. And then we have media, culture, and the arts. Now, some of you are thinking to yourself, well, when I go to the King's College website and I see these three main programs, I don't see my major listed there. I don't see a psychology major. I don't see a history major or an English major or a sociology major or a communications theory major. Here's what I can guarantee you. If you go into any one of the main divisions or programs of the King's College, you will be able to get to where you want to go. No question about it. So, for example, let's take psychology as a model. Let's say you want to major in psychology. You're going to have to do a graduate degree anyway if you want to go into counseling or that kind of clinical work. But what's happening in graduate schools across the country is if that's indeed what you want to do, they like people that have backgrounds in philosophy and economics because you'll be able to understand more about ledgers and about how to run a business, and you will have concrete sequential management skills to build into that profession that you eventually see. So when you think about, for example, the PP&E division, where are our graduates going? They're going into the law field, and law schools see that PP&E degree, and because we have such competitive students, they score extremely well on their LSAT exams, so they're going into law school. They're going into foundation work and nonprofit work, whether that be here in New York City or it be in Washington, D.C. They're going into politics and working for political campaigns. They're going into various different institutions in government. They're going into higher education and now being able to populate other institutions that are in a position to shape culture. You can study economics at the King's College, which is one of the unique emphases. If you can understand the way global markets are shaped, you will understand the way the world works in a unique way. In business and finance, let me just say this. If you're interested in starting a business, or you see yourself as developing an organization long-term, you want to be, or even let's say you want to go into leadership of a nonprofit or a church, you want a business degree, and you want a business degree here in the most obvious place in the world for business, New York City. You want to be rubbing shoulders with the best and the brightest. The same thing is true with media, culture, and the arts. If you're interested in theater, if you're interested in any of the arts, publishing, television, film, any of those things, there are two cities in this country that are the leading tastemakers and culture shapers, New York and Los Angeles. And New York's got the critical mass of all those things put together. So if those are the directions that you're heading out into, here's what you've really got to think. I have an opportunity to look myself in the mirror and know that I can compete with the best and the brightest in the world. And the best and the brightest in the world are here in New York City, studying the kinds of and doing the kinds of things that we have programs here in the city. So the King's College is situated here to provide an opportunity to emphasize free markets, a free republic, free citizens, and a free church. Let me just broach one other topic, and then we'll take some of your questions. Some people hear the King's College is a Christian college in New York City, and Christian college or university says to them, well, maybe this is a Bible college. That is not the case. The King's College is not a Bible college. If you want to eventually serve the church as a strategic institution, you can definitely do that by coming to the King's College. But if you've heard me talking for the last 20 minutes, you know that we're about far more than just that as part of our focus and emphasis here in Lower Manhattan. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a couple of questions that you have shot in. My assistant here, Chad Abbott, there you saw his hand, a disembodied hand just across your screen. This comes from Lori, and it says, what is TKC's goal in terms of enrollment? That is a really good question, because one of the things that is so special about King's, you're in the largest city in the United States of America when you come to the King's College in New York City. And yet there is an intensity of community here in our student body. So not only are students competitive, they are each placed into houses. So we don't have fraternities and sororities, but we have houses, and students select great heroes from the history of the West to model their community after. So there's a house of Churchill, there's a house of Bonhoeffer, there's a house of Queen Elizabeth I, there's a house of Margaret Thatcher and Sojourner Truth and Susan B. Anthony. That's not all of them, but there are some of them. So there is an intense experience of community within the community of the King's College, and currently we have 500 students here. So we're a small college, but it is my ambition that we will double in size in the next couple of years. And already this year we have seen an explosion of applications. So if you're interested in the King's College, we would like for you to be a part of that growth process. But our goal is to have around 1,000 to 1,200 students here. We'll always stay a very focused, tight-knit Christian liberal arts community. All right, this is from Hannah. Are there any potential shortcomings in the King's College education? Well, I will say this. If you are wanting to go into one of the professional programs that you might find at other colleges and universities, King's may not be for you. So if you want to be, for example, a medical doctor, we don't have a pre-med program. If you want to go into nursing or pharmacy, we don't have those programs. If you want a Bachelor of Social Work, we do not have that degree. But if you want to go in any discipline related to the humanities or related to business or finance or culture creation, the King's College is definitely for you. All right. This is from Aaron. We have a triumvirate of young women. Thank you so much. Erin spelled E-R-I-N. Can you talk about the NYC semester program? Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the exciting things that is the case about our opportunity here in New York City is that everybody wants to come to New York City. So what we're finding is that college students from around the country that maybe have started at another institution would like an experience in New York City, but there's nowhere that they can go for a semester abroad here in New York City, because New York City is an international city, or for even a whole year, because this is the place you're going to find the kinds of internships for those strategic institutions. So yes, we receive those students, we work with them on the front end to get them positioned competitively in our current existing curriculum, and then those credits transfer right back into your host institution wherever you go to school. And I cannot recommend it enough. We would love to have everyone come stay 4 years here with us, but if you can only come for one semester, I can guarantee that it will change your life. One more here. All right, Jacob, thank you very much. We have half of the population now represented in 1/4 of the questions. This comes from Jacob. Can you tell us anything about the newly instituted finance program? Absolutely. The finance program is it brings a very unique value proposition to the King's College, because there are very few Christian institutions that have full-fledged finance programs. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with a colleague at another Christian institution that had to close their finance program. We're opening up a finance program. Why? Because we have people that have spent their entire career at Wall Street, on Wall Street, teaching at the King's College. So not only do we have a star-studded faculty in our business and finance department. So, for example, you can turn on Fox News and you can see Brian Brenberg on CNBC or Fox News or a host of other outlets. But we also have people who have been competitive in the field. And so the finance program, if that is something that you want to do and to have a shaping influence there, it is off the ground, it's up and running, and we are receiving our first incoming class in the finance program this fall. I want to end on this note. Many of you have a nostalgia for the golden era of music and the golden era of New York, and everybody pretty much that I have met is in some way a Frank Sinatra fan. Frank Sinatra's most famous song was called New York to New York. And the most famous line in that famous song is, if I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. And one of the things that the King's College represents to the Christian community all around the country is, here we are in the heart of the secular city. It's a tough environment to be in terms of, not only in terms of you got the best and the brightest competing and drawing out the best in you, but to be a witness for Jesus Christ in this place really takes daily devotion, prayer, and spiritual discipline. But as we have a student body that is serious about taking their faith into the marketplace, and as they succeed in going into these culture-shaping institutions, it becomes a symbol of hope for Christians all around the country that the down-in-the-mouth, dour Christianity is on the decline voices that we hear in our culture are not true, that Christians can still be like Daniel and his companions in ancient Babylon, who, because they were faithful and because they were able to interpret the dreams of the king for the nation, were able to go into great positions in finance, culture creation, and government in their time. So I want to thank you for listening to this talk today. We've had a number of you that have submitted questions that I haven't been able to get to today. But here's our promise to you. Our Office of Admissions will follow up with you Luke Smith, who is sitting here to my left. Say hello to them, Luke.
Good evening.
He's from Great Britain, so all of this discussion about how great America is. We're also Anglophiles here too at the King's College, and so Luke will be following up with you and answer all of your questions. This won't be the last time I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this as a regular feature, a live stream, and the next time I may not talk just about who the King's College is and what we're doing. We may want to address other questions that you might submit about what's happening in the culture, about what's happening in the political sphere, about philosophy and apologetics, and about film and the arts. And maybe we'll bring some of our own faculty members here in the process, and we'll have that conversation together. So thank you, good night, and we hope to see you soon in New York City.